there's a lot of good stuff that we're going to go over today. Again, my name's Craig Gray, and I run Her Survival Guide. I run the martial arts program here. I'm also a police trainer, so I have a program that's MCOLS certified, which is MCOLS is the certification board that runs all the education for Michigan law. Basically any of the officers and correctional officers and law enforcement officers. So I run a program that goes towards our mandatory yearly. They need 12 hours of hand-to-hand combatives per year, and I have a course that is 8 hours of that 12 hours. I'm also a subject matter expert for Front Lines of Freedom, which is a military and veterans talk radio show. So I do the personal development or personal defense portion of that. I'm also adjunct professor, adjunct instructor for the Homeland Security Pre-Law Enforcement Pre-Military Academy at the Job Corps. So I teach cadets on warrior ethics, cross-cultural conflict management, and also hand-to-hand combatives, restraint tactics, that type of thing. And then I go around the country and I give Her Survival Guide, which is this is the intro course, so it's an hour long. The full course is 7 hours long. I will refer to that. This will not be a 1 hour infomercial, I promise you, but I will refer back to that, because in an hour, it's not a lot of time to go over a tremendous amount of material, but I do bring out the risks of kind of what we're going to cover is what the risks are out there, the different types of threats. We'll go through some of the different types of threats, how to manage risk and what that looks like, why it's so important that you come to a class like this, whether it's mine or someone else's, and some strategies on how to not be a victim. So enough about me, let's kind of get into it. There are 3 main types of courses, and unfortunately they're often interchanged, the terminology. You probably heard, what do you think of when you think, okay, let's go to a self-defense course? What do you think? I mean, you've heard it a million times. Rape prevention course, assault prevention. Well, for what comes to mind?
In case you get assaulted.
So we have assault prevention.
How to get away.
Yeah, self-defense. So get away, right? What about maybe not looking like a victim? That's part of it, you know, not looking like a target. What else? What do you think of when you think self-defense? You know there's going to be a quiz, did you? Maybe physical tactics. Maybe think of, you know, actual physical interaction. Maybe drawing boundaries. Maybe, you know, you learn how to put out hard line boundaries of, you know, don't do this, or if you see something happening that you can put up a boundary of your protecting your personal space.
You know what to do if you see something happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you see something. For the most part, what assault prevention and self-defense classes typically do is they deal with obvious threats. Somebody jumps out from the bushes, grabs a hold of you, pulls you into their car because they want to abduct you. That's obvious. You hear a lot on the radio and on TV and on the internet and through a lot of the media about the higher profile type rapes and sexual assaults and that type of thing. That makes up about 3 or 4%. The majority is actually a very subtle threat, and that's kind of going into conflict management. These things are bothering me. Conflict management. What do you think of when you think, and actually, have you ever heard of a conflict management course?
Yeah.
Where have you heard it from? Yeah. Typically, the conflict management courses are professional courses. I deal with them with law enforcement. If it is military, typically it's for either the management or it's for hostage basically hostage negotiations. You're dealing with terrorists, you're negotiating with them. In the business world, I've been in the corporate world for 20 years. In the business world, you get conflict management a lot. It's a little bit different, but very similar, where a manager has to basically disciplinary problems or communication challenges with the people that they're employing. You often get it with sales too. I was in sales for a long time. You get conflict management in sales, negotiation strategies and that type of thing. Unfortunately, it's never taught, well, I shouldn't say never, it's rarely taught in self-defense circumstances. This is a subtle threat. So what you're dealing with is negotiation. My handwriting's horrible. This is really more for my benefit. So you have negotiation and you have de-escalation. Right? So conflict management, you have negotiation and de-escalation strategies. This deals with a subtle threat. That deals more with a subtle threat. How to interact in a social environment. If I ask you to get out of your chair and go out the door and you comply, great. What happens if you say no? How do I get you to do what I want you to do without physically grabbing you and bringing you out the door? That's where negotiation comes in. You know, if I'm a police officer and I say, ma'am, I pulled you over. And you say no, or whatever. And I ask you for your license and your registration and you comply, great. If you don't comply, what's next? And that's where it kind of comes in. If let's say you're out on a date and maybe he is starting to do things that you don't want him to do and you ask him to stop. First you have to ask him to stop. And if he doesn't comply, then what? That's negotiation, right? It's still social. It's before the physical portion. It's before you go, okay, gouge out his eyes, knee him in the groin, and leave him for dead. Sometimes that's appropriate. I'm not saying that. We'll get into that a little bit too. But there are stages of this escalation of aggression, right? And the sooner that we can kind of circumvent it, the better off we'll be. And also de-escalation. If there's a threat, if you're acting threatening, so you draw your boundary and he gets upset at that, what are your options? What framework do you have? So this is more social. And this is very important, and we'll get into that in a second. All this stuff ties in together. I'm doing this all for a reason, so we'll come back to it. And then you've probably heard this also. Yeah, actually it's not self. How about personal? Personal empowerment. The big buzzword of the 90s. Personal empowerment. And self-development.